Welcome to Women, Men, and Relationships. I'm JJ Flazanes, your host. Thank you for downloading today's show. Today's show is sponsored by dolphinhealing.net. So last week and the week before, I've been sharing with you that I'm working with Anne Gordon. Anne Gordon does the whalewisdomretreats.com, but she also has this very cool free dolphin healing session that she offers once a month at the end of the month. It's the last weekend, and it's completely free, and it's like a guided meditation as well as a channeling of different messages and healings. So if nothing else, you're going to get a really relaxing, rejuvenating, centering session when she does the meditation part. And then, of course, there may be messages in there for you that are truly inspiring and possibly even healing and freeing that come through her from the dolphins. And again, like I said, it's a great way to experience Anne and her gifts, to also get you excited about whalewisdomretreats.com. In fact, I will be taking one of them next year and leading a bunch of people on a retreat. I mean, she'll be leading it, but I will have my group. So just to put that in your brain, next year there will be a Spirit, Purpose, and Energy, or a JJ Flazanes group going to Panama to do Whale Wisdom Retreats, and most likely it'll be in July. So just to put that in your mind. Right now, go to either whalewisdomretreats.com to check out more information, or sign up for your free complimentary healing session that happens every month at dolphinhealing.net. Also, I do want to remind you that we are getting into the season of the next big step. We are still 12 or 14 weeks away from the live event that I'm putting on in September. And I have added another person to the roster that I'll announce later, Mr. Chris Burns. And so I'm super excited to bring you both he and Melanie, who are new to the group. And of course, for those of you that didn't come to the event in January, you did hear from all the presenters on the show in the first couple of months before the actual event happens. For those of you that have binge listened to this show since the event, you have a good understanding or idea about some of the great energies that I had presenting and healing and helping and facilitating people's experience and transformation at releasing what weighs you down. And that crew will be back with me again next January, the 10th through the 13th. And again, it is a really limited room. So if you have any inclination, there's a 5-pay plan still in place for the January event. We're down to the 3-pay plan now for the September event. And just a couple things to think about why you'd want to come to the September event. Number one, you guys are a very strong community. And I don't know if you all feel this way, but I know a lot of you feel this way, that sometimes you feel like a weirdo. Like you want to talk about astrological things and about emotional things and spiritual things, and maybe your family or your friends or your coworkers don't want to talk about that kind of stuff, and you just don't have an outlet. And while my podcast may serve some of you to get that inspiration, wouldn't it be awesome to hang out with other people who talk about this? Other people who listen to my show, who are like me and like you? It really is such an amazing experience. It really connects you on a much deeper level to who you are and what you're about in the world. And it reminds you you're not alone. So if you're feeling at all like you don't have a community around you that you feel safe or that you could share this stuff with, that's the reason why I've decided to do live events and why I will be committed to doing 2 a year, to bring people together, because we need that soul food. We need that spiritual upliftment. We need that connection amongst each other in order for us to feel like we know we're on purpose. We know we're at the leading edge. We know that we're onto something, and we know that it's not normal and that the average person doesn't have that kind of consciousness. Which leads perfectly into today's show, which is Stop Working Against Your Soul Gift. Melissa Seaman is awesome. She's amazing. She's Pisces like me. She's a Stanford educated business attorney turned professional intuitive executive coach. Melissa works with creative professionals, including Fortune 100 executives, Silicon Valley's top product designers, and entrepreneurs to discover and channel their genius. She also works with the average person on what we're going to talk about today, which is stop working against your soul gift so that you can actually find and embrace what you're supposed to be doing in this world, which is going to open up a channel of ease for you that maybe you've never felt before. So I hope you enjoyed today's show. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hey, JJ.
This is going to be a fun conversation, everybody, for 2 reasons to start. Number one, Melissa is also a Pisces. So
yes,
we have a soul connection on that regard, in terms of we are at least vibrationally in alignment on a fishy water side. And then the other side, of course, is that she is an intuitive and clairvoyant. Are you clairvoyant?
I am actually.
Right. So I knew that about you before this interview happened. And I just want to make sure everyone who's listening understands your powers if they didn't get it from your bio. And so we're going to have a really fun time. Today's topic, stop working against your soul gifts, really stuck out to me because obviously it's right up my alley in terms of things I'm interested in and things you're good at. And I don't think I've ever had anyone on the show talk about soul gifts. So can we start there? Let's start with what is a soul gift?
So a soul gift is like your unique intrinsic talent that you had even before you came in. Like even as a kid, even as a teeny tiny baby, you had this intrinsic gift that is super special and super unique. And so the soul gifts that I talk about are sort of 5 categories of soul gift: the creator, the messenger, the transmitter, the researcher, and the explorer. And
okay, pause, go back. Let's go a little slower because I'm writing notes. Okay, so the 5 categories were creator,
the messenger, the transmitter, the explorer, and the researcher. And these are 5 different ways that it seems we approach life. Like 5 different things we come to give the world as a soul. So, we talk about personality stuff. What's your personality like? What sign are you? There's tons of ways that we use to kind of type ourselves. This one is more intrinsic, like it's the thing you came in with that just came even before your personality layered on top. It's your unique way of channeling energy into this world.
So obviously the next question, before even going into what each of them mean or how do we figure out what our soul gift is?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do we figure out what our soul gift is?
Well, there are 5 different types. I made a little quiz so that it would be really easy to identify, but some people just from my descriptions of them start to get an idea of which one they probably are. The tricky part is, JJ, that some of us come into the world with a soul gift, like many of us come in, especially if you're a very spiritual type, come in maybe as a transmitter, which is sort of the magical person who just emanates a certain frequency in the world. And then we're told what we should be. We're told, well, really, you should be a messenger. In other words, you should be a teacher. You should be a speaker. You should be someone who writes. Or you should be a creator. You should be someone who's an engineer, who builds things, who brings structure into the world. And if you come in with a certain gift, as we all do, and then try to be something you're not, it can be such a struggle. Money can be a struggle. Relationships are a struggle. Taking care of yourself and relaxing into your body can be a struggle. So the idea is to rediscover, kind of peel back all this stuff that life has trained us to be, or that our parents really kind of encouraged us to be. Because usually as a parent, you just assume that your kid is your same soul gift. You just assume that. You just kind of think everybody must be your same type. And so as we peel it back and we just rediscover, oh, wait a minute. I have trouble with structures and money sometimes because actually I'm here as a transmitter. I'm really a being who gives the gift constantly of my energy and my healing power, or whatever it is for a transmitter.
Okay. So then the reason I asked how do you figure it out before I asked you to describe each one was because I'm looking at this list and feel very strongly about the first 3 for me. I'm definitely not number 5. I'm not a researcher. I do research, but it's not definitely something I love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely love to explore, but I haven't explored. I have the need to create. I definitely am a messenger. I'm going to have a podcast and books and I speak. I mean, for crying out loud, I've got like 8 podcasts. So like messenger sticks out. And then there's the transmitter part, which when it comes to like combining some of the things that I've used before, like the tarot, my lifetime tarot or tarot card is the Empress, and the Empress is about love and wisdom. So to me, that's very much of a transmitter, like embodying love and wisdom. Yet
Right.
my soul sign, my true node is in Sagittarius, right? And so that to me is like messenger explorer. So that's why I'm like, wait a minute, I have all these other ways that I've used to sort of make
Yes.
sense of things. So let's go through the list and give us the explanation and how we might be able to tell.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember, you're born with one that's kind of your home note. That's just the easy one. That's just who you are. And then you might spend your whole life learning to act as another one. So a lot of us have layered gifts, and that we really, come in as one, but then we learn the other one. So let's go through them for a second. So a creator. So a creator soul gift type comes into the world already critiquing every structure that exists. So these are the kids, even as little kids, who are building things, and they're trying to get their sandcastle absolutely perfect, and they're looking around the world and they feel like they already kind of know how everything's wired. These are the people who can seem a little I don't know, picky or stuck up to some people, because the truth is they look around the world, they see the source code, they kind of get it. They look around and they go, oh yeah, almost like, oh yeah, I remember when we creators built those trees. Oh yeah, trees. I know how trees work. I know how matter works. it's this intrinsic feeling. It goes back before any education to what is just completely natural, even as a kid. So that's the creator type. And their big gift in the world is to create new structures, new organizational styles, and to critique the ones that are here. So they're kind of like the sacred engineers of the world. You know what I mean? That's creators. They often, if they flow with their gift, they often end up in working within an organization, working with money and other complex systems. They often end up doing some kind of critique based work, like renovations of different situations, or some are business strategists and the like, because they really understand at the base how systems work. That's the creator.
So the things that took me out of creator had to do
Mm-hmm.
with the structure.
Mm-hmm.
On a physical level, I
Mm-hmm.
definitely I'm a strategist in that I always
Mm-hmm.
see things from a strategy perspective of,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely have critiqued my whole life about things that of course, that I've
Right.
seen that seemed like, well, that doesn't really work. Why does that keep going? Why are people
Mm-hmm.
do
What
that?
the
It
heck?
doesn't really
Yeah.
work. So it sounds like a creator. Do you think it's more a physical creator? Say, I thought creator and thought in my mind creativity and
Right.
ideas.
This is
So
different.
is this okay? So different. So this
Mm-hmm.
creator is more of a physical creator, like structures and organizations.
Yeah,
Okay.
systems. Some of them aren't physical. Some of them are about non-tangible systems. Like our economic system is not tangible, but boy, is it complex. And a creator type is more likely to be able to navigate and understand and critique those kind of systems. Yeah.
Okay.
So let's talk about the messenger,
Mm-hmm.
because I know you've got some of this. And, many of us have kind of a primary soul gift, and then we have a bit of a secondary soul gift. So I'm imagining that at least this is a secondary, if not a primary for you. But the messenger is someone who literally loves words and has always loved words, and most likely was standing up on little stages or on the coffee table as a kid saying, let me tell you all how this is going to go. Let me explain everything to you guys. Messengers are often the writers, the speakers, the teachers, the poets, the singers. And for them, their greatest gift is given when they translate complex wisdom or intangible things, or just anything that matters, into words so that other people can understand it. I'm a messenger. I love to talk. I love finding the right words for things. The worst thing you can do to a messenger is to silence them or to interrupt them. They get all flipped out about it. We do. So we translate energy and wisdom into words and language for the most part.
Yeah, definitely. That's if not primary, definitely secondary. And it's really funny that over the weekend, I have like a transition happening in my life right now, and I have and I have a need to share it. I have a desire to share it, not
Mm-hmm.
only for inspiration and proof that what I do works,
Mm-hmm.
but also because, when you feel good or happy, you want to share it with people. So, and, there's a lot of Sag in my chart as well. And so I was talking about wanting to sort of break the barrier in one way of sort of moving forward and telling the story and starting to sort of, share things. And I got locked out in one area, and it really, it triggered me. And I actually started to cry.
Oh,
And I thought to myself, is this the Sag part of me? Is this the part of me that
right.
that feels like I don't want to be boxed in? And right now I feel like I'm in a box that someone else is controlling. And it was a really interesting trigger, because I've done so much work that I rarely get triggered like that. And so the fact that you're talking about, like if I can't express, it takes it to another level beyond just being like the Sag part of me that wants the freedom.
Right.
It really combines the freedom with the words,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
now I'm like, oh, that's why I got so triggered, because wow. And I even could recognize, as I was really upset, that I was like, wow, I feel really uncomfortable. And this is not normal for me. So, I mean, because I usually can identify what that's about and find another way, and I can get my need met in another way. But this whole idea, those two things really had a grip on me. So
Yeah.
thanks for explaining it that way. That makes sense. I definitely agree. Messengers
Yeah.
at least a secondary, if not a primary.
Yes. Yes, I think so. And another way to think about the soul gift is, if you consider that we are channels of energy, that great ideas and inspiration flow into us, and then we channel that source into the world as a thing, as something, right? The creator channels source into the world as a new organizational principle, as a new way of getting stuff done, as a new way of organizing things. The messenger channels that source energy into the world as wisdom, as a new message, as understanding. So that's another way to think about it. If you can think of us as channels, we're all channels of our own genius. And genius pours in and comes out as your soul gift kind of thing.
No,
So,
love that. And definitely, yeah, I always, people think, especially people who aren't messengers, think you're an open book, you talk too much, you tell too much. And it's because it's that whole wisdom. It's that, let me be the example, let me teach, hence why I have a show. Let me share what's going on with me, because it's wisdom I can share with you in case you're going through it too. I don't see it as I'm trying to violate someone else's privacy. I see it as a really important human thread of connection to say, I'm going through this. What if 20 million other people are going through this? Like, it's important to we don't feel alone, and that I can share what's real for me, and it may be helpful to you. So awesome. Okay.
Thank you.
That's it with messenger. Let's go to transmitter.
So transmitter, and I love my transmitters, because this is the most underseen, under-recognized, underappreciated of the soul gifts. Our transmitters are people who source pours into them, and they emanate like a sprinkler. They emanate a healing or evolutionary energy. So this is a lot more unnoticeable in our current culture. But these people because they are magical. They're often our yoga teachers, our massage therapists, our healers. They're usually very sensitive, very intuitive. And whereas a messenger has some choice as to when to give our gift, in other words, like we choose when and how we're going to speak the wisdom into the world that we're given to speak, a transmitter is constantly 24/7 emanating magic. So people want to hang out with these people. You want to hang out with them. You want to just sit next to them on the bus. Although, depending on what their transmission is, because they're emanating 24/7, they find that some people are actually irritated by their transmission. Because we don't speak about these transmissions, it's hard to get consent. It's hard to say to the guy that you're about to sit next to on the bus, hey, I have this transmission for total healing and joy. Are you cool with that? Do you want me to sit next to you on the bus? It all happens under the surface. And so someone who's transmitting, let's say, healing grief might sit down next to the guy on the bus, and the bus guy starts processing grief, and he doesn't know why, except he knows this person is irritating. And so our transmitters are really transmitting literally their emanation, their frequency on the planet. And those of us who can be near them will be evolved. Will receive evolutionary acceleration. We will receive healing. We will be brought up to our next level. But a lot of that happens without anybody even really knowing that's happening. And so for transmitters, it can be extremely frustrating. Transmitters walk through life knowing that they're special in this way, that people are lucky to be around them. And a lot of them feel like they really shouldn't have to work. A lot of the transmitters, when I work at doing business, intuitive business strategy for people, trying to help them find their perfect niche and their perfect business, it's like extra challenging with transmitters, because we basically just need to create a business that gives people the excuse to pay them to sit next to them on the bus, to pay them to be in their presence and receive this powerful transmission.
So is it possible for a transmitter, let's say someone's a transmitter, but do they have to have a certain soul evolution and consciousness to be a positive transmitter? Are there negative transmitters?
Well, for all of us, source pours in, and if we feel really tweaked and we're really blocked, then that's what we spread in the world, unfortunately, right? And so for transmitters, they do tend to be super sensitive and need a lot more what we would call self-care than maybe other people. So they end up doing more yoga, needing to eat cleaner. They'll often be vegan, because their body is this sensitive instrument, like a delicate transmission tower that is emanating these, potent and refined energies. And so if they're off, they can really go down. They can get exhausted. They sometimes get hit with autoimmune diseases or Lyme easier than other people, because they're just so intuitive and so sensitive.
What about the role of being an empath? So
Mhm.
if I'm empathic, yet I'm a messenger, and someone who's a transmitter, are all transmitters empathic? Is that part of the
Yeah.
connection? Okay.
Generally, yes, because they have a, if you can imagine us all again as channels, we all have these containers, like as if we're all tubes walking around, where God pours in the top and creation pours out the bottom. And for transmitters, that tube is super thin. And that's how they transmit out. It's their container itself of their energy body is very refined and very, very subtle. So they tend to feel everybody, and they feel things more strongly than some of the other types. Now, I'm a messenger with a transmitter secondary. So I am way more sensitive and intuitive than most people. And I always have been. Even when I was in law school, I was intuitive in that way. It was, some of us are just like that. And so it is possible to have aspects of both.
Well, I was just wondering if all transmitters are empathic, because even if someone's an empath and let's say they're, not taking care of themselves and they don't know this, and then
Mm-hmm.
now they're transmitting sort of negative frequencies and
Mm-hmm.
depression, and because they themselves aren't aware, therefore they're not doing sort of things to keep them optimally transmitting a higher frequency. I just wondered
Yeah.
how that sort of played out.
Yeah, it seems that we all, no matter what type, we all transmit to some extent. We're all emanating stuff all over the place. And if we're feeling really messed up or we're exhausted, of course, that emanates too. Transmitters do tend to be more sensitive, more empathic. And when they go down, though, JJ, it seems like they just kind of power down and they grow invisible, more than like becoming negative beacons. you know, um, they don't seem to have a tendency to become more negative beacon than any other type, as far as I can tell. I mean, it's hard to do like a real, study on this sort of thing, because
Of
a lot of
course.
it's so intangible. But from the thousands of people I've worked with, around this, it seems that when a transmitter is exhausted, they just kind of they get sick or they get tired, and they just kind of their light dims, and then they
Okay.
feel like they're not living their purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the explorer.
Cool. So explorers are those souls that came here to just test all the limits. And you probably know people like this in your life. They're the ones who are, usually they're hopping on a plane, or they're trying like really radical ways of living or radical relationship styles, and they're doing it for the sheer sake of doing it. Like they're doing it to they treat this world like a playground. Like, hey, let's see what we can do. Like, hey, I wonder what it would be like to stay up for 5 nights in a row. I just have to try. And explorer types, they really need to be testing the edges. They need to try it all. They often find themselves traveling from country to country and feeling like they're weaving energies. There's some aspect of explorers where they just know all their life, they know they have to go to Indonesia, and then they go to Indonesia and they feel almost like they're delivering packages of energy from country to country. They're the results of their many experiments as an explorer are woven among all the people and places where they go, almost like they're a pollinator, who's just living on the edge and sharing the sheer joy and poignancy of life with people. So if you are an explorer, you're listening to this podcast while you're on a flight, or you're out running listening to this podcast, you will rarely find an explorer just like chilling on the sofa. They're go, go, go kind of people.
Okay. One person comes to mind who I know who definitely is an explorer. I don't know if she knows she's an explorer, but I think it's the people that you look at and think, what are they up to now? What are they doing now? Why? And then some people might judge them as they don't know who they are because they keep changing who they are.
Yeah.
And definitely.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of frustrated explorers in our world too. People who just have this wanderlust, but never really get to satiate it, never really get to go play. And just finding out that they actually are an explorer underneath it all gives them tremendous validation, to realize, oh, that's why, that's why I always want to push it. And that's what's fun, is to be able to encourage people to let their original blueprint shine through. Go ahead, give yourself permission to be what you are. There's nothing wrong. It's awesome. Go be an explorer. Test the limits.
I did that when I allowed myself to create the podcast and learned about podcasting and gave myself an outlet for all the things I wanted to talk about, and gave myself permission to do all the things I wanted to do. So that was my small attempt at an explorer, by saying, I need these outlets. I'm not going to wait for anyone to give me permission. I'm going to create them. And there you go. So
wow. Fantastic. That's so cool.
Thanks.
So our final type is the researcher. And this is a much misunderstood type too. In fact, I remember my son Colin, who's now 20, when the soul gift quiz kind of channeled through me, and I was talking about these soul gifts a lot, because previous to that, it had just been something that internally I had used, like as my own internal system with my guides to identify people when I'm doing long distance readings, And I had my kids take the quiz. Now, I was certain that I knew what my kids were. I was certain that Colin was a messenger just like me. He took the quiz and he's like, Mom, I can't believe you thought I was a messenger. I am so a researcher. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, and my face got all hot because I was so embarrassed. I was like, oh my gosh, I came up with this system and I can't even type my kid. And when I realized that he's a researcher, I dropped into a whole new understanding of my boy. And seriously, our relationship deepened in that moment, because a researcher is a soul who arrives here to witness and track and notice everything. And researchers often feel a little bit separate from the rest of humanity, because the rest of humanity seems to get so wound up with emotions and drama, and researchers tend to be those solid, grounded people who don't exaggerate. They are actually very factual. And it's so beautiful to hear a researcher report on something, because they actually see it as it is, not as it should be, not as they wish it were, not as if they're just trying to impress you with how they describe it, but actually what's happening. And that's the way Colin has always been. Even as a little kid, he was watching. He literally was born with a little furrowed brow, like he was watching the world and taking it all in. He was a witness to it. And he heard everything, he noticed everything, and he would cook it inside of his own mind and make sense of it. And by the time Colin speaks, he's really got something to say that is dead on, just right on. And so researchers often end up working in technology because technology has that same approach. It can see things for what it is. It's not constantly adding fantasy and whatever emotions and all that stuff. And researchers who are teenagers, including my son, often find respite from the crazy emotional ups and downs world in video games, because video games are a world that's interesting and complex, but everything makes sense. Everything has rules, everything has consequences. And while some people think researchers are cold just because they're not so emotionally dramatic, actually researchers are some of our deepest feelers. They feel emotions, they just don't broadcast them. They don't project them on other people. They're just very clear and very factual.
It's interesting as we're going through the list, people that come to mind when you're describing them. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized, like, so for instance, my dad came up and then I'm like, but what's my mom? What's my brother?
Right.
What's this person? What's that person? And so I'm like, wow, I don't know. And I don't know that they know because I don't
Yeah.
feel like they're living one of these in such a strong way. Possibly. Anyway, I just find it fascinating.
Yeah.
And I want to share the quiz. I want people to go take the quiz. Where's the quiz, Melissa?
So the quiz is at soulgiftquiz.com. So soul, SOUL, gift, quiz.com. And yeah, and it's a free quiz. It's only 8 questions. It takes like 2 minutes and it really nails you. And it's fun to take the quiz and then to have, of course, your partner wants to get your partner to take the quiz, your friends, and you can see what types they are.
Well, I'll be taking it, even though I think I'm a messenger first. And then after that, I may be a transmitter second.
I've got a secondary soul gift quiz in development right now, so that soon you'll be able to know not only your primary soul gift, but also your secondary. Because when you know those two, boy, you really know what kind of career really fits. You understand better how you communicate, and understanding what the other people in your life are really helps, appreciate them and give them space to be themselves too.
So obviously, I heard that people can take this quiz. People can work with you individually, correct? One-on-one about uncovering, unpacking, and figuring out what to do with their answers and how to sort of bridge that gap. Where would they find information on how to work with you?
Well, what's cool is when you take the quiz, at the end of the quiz, after you get your results, you'll have the option to opt in to be in touch with me. And then you can reach out to me anytime. You can even just write me back. I will read your emails. And I specifically love to help people find their purpose, to really identify what they're here for. And for people who want to have a business or have a business, I love to bridge into that world as well, because I'm a former business lawyer.
Tell that story. Tell the story about your path and your gifts and uncovering them and getting to where you are.
Yeah, I was a Stanford educated business litigation attorney in San Diego and loved my life, loved being a leader in my Catholic church, and that whole life was awesome. And then when I gave birth to my second child, my daughter, I got accidentally psychic. I really blew open. And it was a trip, because that wasn't part of my world previously. I wasn't already woo, and suddenly I was quite woo. And for a while, I went deeply into the world of intuitive and shamanic practice and just really explored it full on. And then I realized, wow, I think my deepest gift is in translating between the worlds and helping people bridge their deepest purpose and the path of their soul with identifying the perfect business to do so they can really have huge impact and make great money. And so now I just really love to span those two, what sometimes seem like very separate worlds, the worlds of deep spirituality and business and profit and corporate structure and all kinds of things. I feel now how deeply connected they are and how much we can do in this world when we both use both sides of us, the spiritual aspect and the pragmatic, get her done sort of aspect.
I don't understand how someone couldn't make the connection. Of course,
Yeah,
I can,
right?
but why? But how perfect when you are utilizing your internal intrinsic energies and
Yeah.
you are in alignment in the best possible way
Mm-hmm.
from every cell in your body aligned with creator source or who you're supposed to be, things
Mm.
flow. So of course you're
Yeah.
going to make a lot better strides in all areas of your life, business, health, and relationships when you are in alignment with who you are and what your
Yeah.
gifts are.
That's
It's
so
to
true.
me, you disconnect them. Someone who's struggling through life in any area, if you're not understanding yourself on this kind of level, then you may
Mm-hmm.
never find that path because you're not asking the right questions.
It's part of life, but it's kind of a bummer that so many of us are trained away from our core gifts, so much so that we don't even know what we are. And I get letters from people all the time who've taken the soul gift quiz who say, oh my gosh, some part of me has always known that I'm a messenger or a transmitter, a creator. But until I took your quiz, I guess I didn't allow myself to see it. I've been trained to be something else. And so everything opens up. When you work with your gifts, everything gets easier.
Well, we could talk longer and we will. I will definitely have you back because there's so much more for us to share about what it is you do and and how you can help people. And hopefully today everyone's going to go take the quiz at soulgiftquiz.com and figure out if you're a creator, messenger, transmitter, explorer, researcher. And then maybe that in itself might answer a lot of questions about any struggles you may be having. So make sure to check in and go to soulgiftquiz.com. Melissa, you're awesome and I love you.
Thanks, JJ. I love you too. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. Thank you for listening to today's episode. And don't forget, if you want to get your ticket for the next big step or releasing what weighs you down, come over to jjflazanes.com.